Hey everybody, good morning and welcome to Written and Watched. This is the second part of World War Z, so if you haven't read it, haven't seen the movie, go do one of those things and then come back, because whichever one you do, you're going to have a totally different experience. With me today is Sean Fitzgerald. Sean, do you want to introduce yourself and tell the people where they can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. My name's Sean Fitzgerald. You might know me better as SS Fitzgerald. I am the author of A Fold to Extinction and Sinner's Pass. You can find me on Amazon or my website, ssfitzgerald.net.
The steamshipfitzgerald.net. Got it. So we read World War Z, and you were super spoilery and teasery about the movie not being anything like it. And so I approached this film and said, I'm going to try and watch this film not as World War Z, but as a zombie film.
Yeah.
Because this film has nothing to do with the book almost at all.
Right.
It is phenomenally disconnected.
Yeah, and, I was trying to be impartial setting up for our conversation about this today. And when I had to go back and rewatch it, which, oh man, it was my third time watching it, and I don't think I'm going to be able to do this again. But I had to break it down like, okay, there's three different criteria we have to look at, right? Is it a good movie, period? Is it a good zombie movie? Right. And then is it a good World War Z movie? And I don't want to, spoil whatever you're about to say by going into my various different dissections of those areas.
No, nail it. You can throw those up right at the beginning, because the crazy thing about this is, as much as we walk through World War Z and discuss kind of, we talked about some of the important battles and some of the important science and the way that they frame the stories and the way that they make discoveries. None of that applies here. We're going to have to describe a whole new plot to you guys so that you know what we're talking about. But so there's no way to spoil it. There's no way to break how fracturing this movie is to anybody that's working in the context of the book. So just go for it with your three takes, and we can walk right through them. Yeah.
So as a movie, generally, there's a lot of flaws in the movie, and I think it's going to be the same flaws that you see in any summer blockbuster, right? It was out there. We're going to do a quick grab, get people in the theaters, but it's not something memorable. As a World War Z, it's a complete failure. It's not World War Z.
Complete failure.
And then I
want to point out how much of a complete failure it is. It's such a complete failure at being World War Z that the Oatmeal made a comic about it. And the comic is a Venn diagram, so the two circles, and it's called What the World War Z Movie Has in Common with the Book. The book tells the story of the geopolitical, religious, environmental, and social changes that result from the zombie war from a variety of countries and a variety of perspectives, hence World War Z. The movie tells the story of Brad Pitt running around shooting things and outrunning explosions in order to save humanity. What they have the same is that they're titled World War Z.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. That nails it.
Like, not even the zombies are the same.
Yeah, they're running zombies, and what attracts them is different, and I'm going to spoil it right now. There's a cure. So
go for it. Yeah.
There's a cure, which is crazy. Yeah. So then that comes down to the third criteria. Is it a good zombie movie? And I came back and said, if you look at it and you actually watched it, like if you said that this is the Brad Pitt zombie movie, not World War Z, it's okay. It doesn't add anything new to the.
But it's not consistent.
It's not. Yeah. And that's, I'm going to
have. I went crazy trying to figure out what was going on, like what the zombie rules were, right?
Yeah.
Because when you jump into like a made up world, I want a coherence to the rules so that then the heroes can figure out a clever way to exploit them. But they just added contrivances to the zombies as you went along that changed what the next set piece was going to be.
Yeah.
Like, it was really just going, okay, well, Israel's secure. Let's go there. Now we have a big thing in Israel we can do. Okay, now there's a cure, but it's on the other side of the building. So we have this whole getting through the zombies thing we can do. Like, it didn't spring naturally from how the rules work for the zombies. So from that point of view, I did not think it was a good zombie movie.
Yeah, I would agree on that. When we discussed the novel, you'd asked me, hey, does it bother you that the zombies aren't deteriorating? Is that something that breaks the world? And I came back and said, no, because they never give you an explanation to that. So you're allowed to have that disbelief that there's something about the virus that stops it. They get very detailed in certain parts where they try to explain what the virus is and how it works. and then they break the rules when they do that. And just to your point, if you create a lore and you create rules in your world and then you constantly break them, I have no investment as a audience member to, get invested in any of these rules that you just set up. Yeah, I would agree.
Because I feel like you're just selling me spectacle and bubblegum, and it's the same thing like DC broke everything when they killed Superman and then brought him back from the dead. Like that was the beginning of the deaths and rebirths and multiple universe and fracturing of the comic books. And all of a sudden you throw out the rules because you can be like, oh no, we're on Earth 227 now and not Earth 774. And the multiverse allows for that. But in something like a standalone movie, you don't get to do that, or you're making up an imaginary world like you're doing with a kid.
Yeah.
And then what if the robots had flames that came out of their ears instead of their eyes because they got redone by somebody, a magic guy down underground. Like it was frustrating.
It was.
And so to your first point on if this stands as a movie, I will give it the credit that I think that it had some scenes that were fun to watch.
Yeah.
I really liked the Israel flowing zombies like water flooding through that. Pretty cool to watch. Kind of a neat framing. They did have really good foreshadowing with the cure. There was one. With the couple of people that stand out in the middle of everything and don't get eaten. I thought that was well tied together. But then the just flagrant disrespect for their own story Bible was frustrating as hell.
Yeah.
And then there's just stuff. Okay, so I have a thing with movies that I call my coffee cup problem. And my coffee cup problem is that whenever you see people with like a paper cup of coffee and they hand it to each other, it's almost always empty and you can tell because of the way they hold it. That instantly pulls me out of the movie because I'm staring at that coffee cup going, there's nothing in there. There's not even water in there. There's nothing in there.
Yeah.
Did you have coffee cup moments in this from having a military background? Because I had some, and I don't have a military background.
It's not my military background that caused it. I will say, for everybody who's about to listen to this, I have a very hard time watching certain military movies because I know something like they just didn't put the effort in and get a military advisor, and everything's just wrong. And I think a lot of veterans have that issue. But my issue was just things that logically didn't line up. And I think a lot of people pointed this out about one of the opening sequences to the movie. They're in traffic. A cop comes up and they're talking to him. And there's this panning shot that shows all these vehicles behind them just locked bumper to bumper in traffic. And then a semi or dump truck comes through and hits the cop and blows through. And suddenly all the cars behind them are gone. There's no traffic that was there. You didn't hear this truck come out.
Yeah.
And the world immediately falls apart right there.
And holy crap, did they ignore physics right off the bat?
Yes.
I've seen traffic. I've seen how car crashes work. I've watched the cool videos where they have like the 60 car pileups in ice and people are running out of the way and the cars have no ability to stop. Even a trash truck fully loaded is not going to get through that many cars like a plow. Like it just hammered like 20 cars in a row out of the way and didn't stop until it hit an ambulance. And then all of a sudden, that path that it cleared led to a clear path where they could just pull off to the right and they're on the road. Like the realism of it is just so not there. It's like it's a kid playing with trucks.
Yeah.
Did the blocking. It just didn't work at all. And I was so frustrated by that. Go ahead, because I'm guessing you've got a string of these.
I do. It's so they fall into that like 2000s method of shaky cam, which I'm not a fan of. Maybe somebody out there.
Yes.
But it's just a way to show action without actually showing anything. And they do that entire scene right after that dump truck. And then they zoom in at one moment. And for some reason, we're supposed to be focused on this one zombie trying to get into a car. But there's no context of why that's important from all the shaky camera stuff. And then they do the Deus Ex Machina, which if you're not familiar with the term, it's the God within the machine. That's basically the writers giving you a way to escape something, and they do it with the RV. So you have all these people escaping.
Yeah.
There's this RV that was abandoned for some reason, still working perfectly.
So wait, I gotta stop you for a second, because before even we get to the RV, there were so many things that I had a massive issue with, and this goes to the zombie rules, right? So right off the bat, these are not World War Z zombies. They are not slow and persistent. These are summer blockbuster thriller fast zombies. These are 28 days later, super fast zombies.
Yes.
28 days later, the zombies don't last long because they're wearing themselves out. These zombies not only are fast zombies, but they seem to have some kind of a primary drive where they will focus on one individual and be, I'm getting that guy. And for some reason, they'll pick people who are inside of cars instead of the thousands of people that are running around them.
Yeah.
And then that guy that gets pulled out of the car, the zombie doesn't try to eat him. He just bites him. So what are the zombies doing? This is one of those zombie things where it's like, well, why do you want them? I can see like getting infected as a side effect of kind of fighting off a slow zombie and you survive and then you zombify. But these zombies are just trying to bite other zombies or people and turn them into zombies. It's like, well, I don't get that motivation in anything, because the whole opening, like before they even get to Brad Pitt's lovely wife and lovely life, where his daughter can't have a puppy even though he's a stay-at-home dad and can take care of it. I don't know why he's so mean to his children. That might be an Angelina Jolie question, but we'll leave that alone. The opening montage shows a whole bunch of nature clips, and it's all red and tooth and claw stuff, right? Where it's wolves that are grr, and predators pulling meat off of prey, and they show bugs that are fighting other bugs and eating the remains of other animals. And I was watching it with an eye towards, oh, are they doing rabies? Are they showing animals with rabies? And it did not appear so at any time. And when they showed bugs, I'm like, oh, are they going to do the cordyceps thing? They're going to show us the weird, if you don't know what cordyceps is, it's this fungus that takes over ants and makes them literal zombies. Look it up. It is creepy AF. Yeah. Are they going to do that? And in that whole opening animal montage, no rabies, no cordyceps, no funguses, no bacteria, nothing that indicates virus. So I still don't know what they were trying to go towards at that.
Yeah.
And then they have the zombies with the weird rules, and then there's an RV. So I'll let you go on that one, because I have to throw that in there. For it opens with some promise.
Yeah.
And then it never makes a promise. It looks like it wants to, but it just can't commit.
Yeah, and
right?
I think, I watched this with a fresh mind of like knowing that we're going to have this conversation. I think the only connection I could say, and this is very loosely, so if somebody's out there thinking that I'm going to give them a gold star for this, I'm sorry, it's not. It's that they show all these like celebrities talking at the beginning with those animals. I think Oprah is the person.
It's cut in.
Yeah, in between it.
They cut in like TV talk show clips in with red of tooth and claw. Yeah. It was really strange.
And I'm looking
but they did have a couple where it was like news feed about the rabies outbreak in India or Africa or one of the ones.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly which, but they do have a little bit of voice where you're like, oh, maybe there will be World War Z-ish stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. And
spoiler, no. Anyway, so they got the celebrities. Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, I guess that's their one nod to the chapter where they were talking about how people were so distracted with everything else in their lives and the government wasn't really trying to push it. But they never touch on that again. The opening is so disjointed from the rest of the movie. And then you mentioned that zombies don't follow rules. We have flying zombies, basically. Like, how many times was somebody taken out by a zombie just launching through the air and then they're on the ground fighting with them? Like, I feel like every person who got taken out by a zombie got taken out that way.
Yeah. The zombies have weird ability to survive like 100-foot drops and just get up and walk around more.
But and then
like there's several times where the zombies, like in Israel, the zombies they become stackable zombies and they start climbing on top of each other. Okay, that's kind of neat. I like the effect.
Yeah.
But then when they get to the top of the wall, they just throw themselves off the side of it. And it is literally 100-foot high wall, and they're falling onto concrete.
Yeah.
That doesn't leave the bones in any kind of a condition to be a fast zombie anymore.
Right. And they get up and right back to it.
It's just, yeah. We'll get to all this stuff because there's so many things that are just so bonkers. So the RV is totally, who would ever drive an RV in Midtown Manhattan?
Right. Yeah.
And then leave the RV. Where are the people whose RV that is?
Exactly. And then why did nobody else go? You're the only people that saw that as like a safe haven. And then, of course, there's the cool concept that we discussed in the book was that you didn't have a named narrator. So we have Brad Pitt. So we already knew that it was going to be about him. And then they did the stereotypical horror cliche of like, here's your warm, happy family. And oh, by the way, one of the kids has asthma, so we have to have that as a driving force for like the first, 20 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
And then I don't know how much you get into looking at the background of movies as you watch them, but I feel like a lot of movies, when they write scenes, they don't think about the reality of the way people are. Like bar scenes are a common one. It's like whoever wrote those scenes, they don't know what drunk people are like or how quick you can take alcohol before it kills you. And in this, there's this moment where they're in the grocery store and they're in the produce section and there's motor oil hanging out in the middle of the produce section. I'd never, for the life of me, been in a produce section and seen motor oil just chilling in the middle. And it's little things like that.
That was confusing as hell, but I thought maybe it's a Walmart and somebody is bad at stocking. Or maybe it's a food for less with a deal. It was very strange. The motor oil was strange.
And it's little props like that for how much money they ended up having to sink in this movie. And for those who don't know and don't want to do the whole research, Paramount wasn't sure they were going to be able to make World War Z at the very beginning of this. And they had to get a co-financer to produce the movie. And then after they finally got the money approved, they had to pitch it to different production studios. And it was Plan B, which is the Brad Pitt production studios, that picked it up for that price. And it's like, if you're sinking that much money into it, at least get something right to make it an enjoyable movie, right? That's probably a terrible comparison.
Well, there's even a whole bunch... Yeah, there's even a whole bunch of Chekhov's guns that aren't even guns that are just kind of in there. Like, why does the car need to not start? Why does the RV not start when she tries to turn again? There's no drama. There's no stress. It doesn't add. There's no zombies coming, so there's no tension in it. It's just for some reason the car doesn't start and then it does.
Yeah.
Why is that even in there? You can cut that out easy. The gun that he gets early on and carries around, it's in the RV mounted over the door. So whoever left the RV didn't take their gun to go into the zombie space.
Right.
And it was loaded and just sitting there inside the door and he abandoned it.
Yeah.
Where is Brad getting bullets? Because he blows through at least a dozen, if not 15 to 20 shots with the gun.
And never reloads.
And it's a bolt action but I don't think it's a breech load. I think it's got a chamber of like 5 or 6, but not 12, not 15, not 20 even.
Yeah.
And he just so just watching all that stuff, like even as a non like I've shot guns and I don't have a gun, but I don't care if you have a gun or whatever. But as a non-gun guy, I was watching going, I don't think that gun can shoot that many times.
Right. The revolver problem in every action movie, right? It's a 6-round gun, but he's fired through 60 rounds so far, and never once reloaded. Which I don't get what movies hate about that, because everybody loves a reload scene. So it's just throw it in there.
Yeah, adds tension, adds stress, and then you get stuff like John Wick, where he's just planting magazines all over the place and popping them out and slamming them in. Like, that's fun stuff.
Yeah.
You can do neat things with it.
I mean...
But it felt like they didn't have a reality advisor in this movie.
Yeah, they didn't.
Like, not even the military stuff, but just like... And I think this is one of those things that happens with... And the budget for this was $190 million, right? So I think one of the things that happens with movies up around this budget is you have so much money that so many people are concerned about that all of those people are leaning in going, well, I put money in it. I get to say what happens and what kind of scenes I want.
Yeah.
And Brad Pitt talks about in a couple of interviews about this movie going, it's hard to make these kind of movies. It's hard to work at this budget level because you have so much on the line and so much stuff that's done in production. They did reshoots. They refilmed the ending, apparently. Like, there's a lot of stuff where there's a made by committee feel to portions of this film.
Yeah, and the worst part of this is if you go back and you look at, I might mispronounce his name. I'm sorry about that. Starzinski. He had a very similar script when it all first started, with the draft being similar to the book, and then they slowly started having to shift it as these budget committees started getting involved, just like you said, and it ultimately came down to them saying, like, it's a completely different in-universe experience from the book, but they have the title, and that's what they wanted. And I hate that that's what drew a lot of people in, and it's probably why this movie isn't memorable when it if you can take it from, like, let's just say the old classics like Night of the Living Dead, which it was new, it was different, but it at least was its own thing. Can't say that about World War Z.
If this movie had been made in the 80s with this script, I think it would be forgivable. Because there's a lot less access and understanding of a bunch of stuff. There's just people are making smaller movies. The special effects would have been ratchet but super entertaining. They would have been stop motion zombies. I think that in the 80s, if you made this movie with this script on like a $5 million budget, right? So for the 80s, that'd be a heck of an investment. You'd probably do pretty well and have a pretty cool zombie movie. But because it was made when it was and has the cast it does and has the CG budget it does, it's just that. Like, I don't see it having legs. This is not a movie that I go, ooh, I will never want to watch this again.
Yeah.
There is nothing in me that goes, part of that experience was fun. I want to jump into it again.
Yeah.
It's really a disjoint of a popcorn movie. Yeah. And I think that speaks to, like, as much as we're shitting on the movie right now, credit where it's due, it is the highest grossing zombie movie of all time. It grossed like $590 million worldwide in its theatrical run. So it is a successful movie by the normal metric of exceed double the budget because of production and overruns, all that stuff. So it does succeed on that capitalist criteria.
Yeah.
Which makes me mad because that means other people are going to look at it and go, cool, we just need the title.
Yeah.
Buy me a title and we're making a movie.
Yeah.
And that's so frustrating.
And
because all those of us that read World War Z, we were the more deceived, for there was another ring and it ruled them all.
Yeah, exactly. It was, if you went into it expecting World War Z the book, you left that theater with your heart broken. That's for sure. And just for everybody else that's about to watch this, like, it's similar to what happened to
don't.
It's very similar to what happened to I Am Legend. Like, if you read the I Am Legend book, it's not the movie. But I'd say what the difference is, like, there was a generational gap between the book and the movie. And at least the movie was entertaining. Like, there's moments in that I remember from I Am Legend where I really, like, this was a fun summer movie. I can see myself watching. I can't see myself wanting to go back to World War Z. I had to watch it a third time for this interview, and I was like, I don't want to ever have to do it again. And I didn't watch it with my wife, and my wife hasn't seen it. And I'm like,
we're gonna do a rehash. 10 years from now, we're gonna come back to it and go, does World War Z hold up? And I'm gonna call you, and we're gonna I'm gonna make you watch it one more time.
Okay, I'll do it just for you then. Okay,
I'm just gonna torture my guests for the immediate future. Okay. So and this is military stuff that I was watching. I was like, what the hell? There were like two or three things that I don't think are actually possible to do, and one of them was a C-130 taking off of an aircraft carrier. Like, is that even humanly possible? Because I know they did the rocket-assisted takeoff plan to try and get hostages out at one point.
Yeah.
They never got to do it, but they strapped rocket engines onto a C-130 so it could take off in like a football stadium size area. And it was basically vertical takeoff C-130. But a C-130 off of an aircraft carrier, and it looked like it used the shorter catapult too. I was super, what the frig was that kind of feeling?
Yeah. So
do you know if it's even possible? I don't think it is.
So I'll say, just for my record background, not a pilot, not an Air Force guy. I had to look it up just while you were asking. And the immediate answer is no, a C-130 cannot take off an aircraft carrier. Carrier-based aircraft are specifically designed for taking off and landing on carriers using the arrestor gear and steam catapults. So, yeah, that's Hollywood magic.
And I did the same thing. I looked it up, and I'm like, wait a minute, that was a C-130 taking off. And I put in World War Z as a qualifier, and I found this giant list of errata. And apparently the C-130 shots are interspersed with shots of a Russian AAN-12. And so they don't even use the same plane when they're doing interior, exterior, and then special effects shots. So wires crossed all over the place on that C-130.
Look, if you ever want to get into a military conversation with me, let's watch just the first season of The Walking Dead, and you and I can destroy that show.
All right. Dude, I haven't read the comic book, so we could read the comic book and then do the first season.
That sounds great. I'd love to do that with you. But
okay, so we'll talk about doing that as a follow-up.
Yeah, absolutely. From a military's perspective, when it comes to World War Z, they had the same problem that a lot of movies do, where it's like, if you talk to your most basic soldier, let's just take a brand new guy straight out of boot camp, infantry soldier, nothing super special. He knows one thing, and that's I have to have security every place I go. So basic concept is if you have two dudes, one guy watches the front, one guy watches the back. For some reason in the military, in the movies, they never have 360 security. They're tunnel vision right where they are. And then you get flying zombies that come out of the back and knock off all the soldiers, and then Brad Pitt's the only survivor somehow. And I don't get how that is constantly a thing. The only entertaining moment, and I'm speaking specific about that scene where they're in the C-130 trying to sneak through the night, was that the scientist everybody thought was...
Oh, with the bicycles?
Yeah, a little bit before that, when the scientist runs up the ramp and slips and domes himself with the Glock. That was the only entertaining thing. But like all the soldiers get knocked out. And then here's something that I don't get is if you're told something in the show or in the movie, in the universe, Brad Pitt said they're attracted to the sounds. So he takes his cell phone and leaves it on, and then it goes off in the middle of their sneaking mission. Like, why did you?
So two things. It's so frustrating because there were two things on the cell phone for me. One is, why were the zombies like swarm and react to the cell phone, but when the C-130 landed,
no care.
They didn't.
Yeah, they don't care about that massive engine.
That feels like a much louder thing.
Well, so let's go back to the Israel conversation. Helicopters, trucks, people, but what sets them off is singing. Some reason the singing gets them going.
It's so frustrating. Not only that, but the helicopter, and this is me playing video games, so this is, if anybody military, I apologize, this is video game Justin talking. But the helicopter, which has the ability to stay in one place, kept strafing the zombie tower instead of just parking in front of it and shooting at it.
Yeah.
Like that was driving me nuts because I'm like, why are they doing that? And I know it looks cool on screen, but dude, the zombies can't get the helicopter unless you get close to the zombies.
Yeah.
So park it.
Surprised they somehow
and shoot at them.
But
and how did the helicopter patrols not see the zombies starting to stack up?
Yeah. It's like, how did you?
What?
And then we, if you want to talk about like ballistics, so they're hitting them with large caliber weapons out of a helicopter. And I'm like, well, it doesn't matter if you get a headshot or anything at that point, you're obliterating a body. So like your stack wouldn't work because you're at one moment you're standing on a head and then next moment you're standing on mush. So it's
Yeah. And I mean, if they're shooting right into the densest mass, they're not going to miss a single shot. And everything down there is going to be kind of vaporized jelly that's just kind of smooshing out from underneath. It'd be kind of a. Do you ever make like head cheese where you boil a whole head and then you have like a weird thing? It'd be like that. It'd be like this gross gelatinous mass of people and goo. This is so gross. It'd be so gross. The plot armor in this is so thick for Brad Pitt.
Yes.
So not only is he consistently the only survivor of a plane crash, a zombie attack, a possible infectious event when he gets blood in his mouth, but he's just consistently in the right place at the right time to be safe. He's consistently the one that's coming through. And so much of it is just plot armor. There's no setup or explanation. They try and do it a little bit with his, you were a researcher in problematic areas that could find the people we needed to find guy.
Yeah.
But that feels so contrived.
Yeah. And I'm going to attack the cell phone again. There's a moment where...
Oh, yeah, do, because I've got another one on the cell phone. Go for it.
So there's a moment where they took, like, right near the end, your phone's dead. It doesn't work anymore. And then he gets to that research lab, and then he wakes up, and they're all suspicious of him. And his phone works again, and then they don't believe him who he is. And then I was like, wait, so you don't believe him. His phone suddenly has a battery again, and you didn't use the phone to contact anybody to confirm who this dude is, which is what any government agency would immediately do if they were suspicious about somebody. They have their cell phone. And I'm like, this guy just has every single thing going for him. And then if you want to talk about plot armor, the very end is nothing but pure plot armor. Like that entire...
Oh, yeah.
Like, I hate this. I hate every second of this.
Yeah.
So
it's so awful. The other thing about the phone, they are satellite phones. They give him and her a satellite phone. We now have satellite phones on our phones, which is cool. But if you know anything about it or have had to try and get a service connection, you have to be outside in clear view of the sky going like this with your phone.
Yeah.
And so the satellite phones should not work in the belly of an aircraft carrier. They should not work inside the WHO. They should not work on a plane. You need clear line of sight to the satellite.
Yeah, and it's not even like a modern satellite phone. It's the type of stuff that I used back like when I was doing state emergency stuff, and they're not super reliable phones. You have to play with the antenna a little bit, and you have to have the right. This blows me away that this is how they were set up, and maybe he didn't have this particular type of phone, but they have a SIM card that you plug into them, and if you don't have the right SIM card, you can't talk to somebody with the wrong SIM card. And I was like, that is crazy. And that I was like, look, there's a lot of opportunities where they could have made this movie super tense. So let's cut the truck out that we talked about earlier. They could have had a moment where he was rushing to reload the rifle. That would have been way more intense than watching them try and start the car and nothing happening. They wanted all this like frustration around the phone and talking to people. If they would have used a little bit of reality to it, it would have been way more intense, and I would have been more invested in him and his relationship that got changed 4 times on the cutting floor. So,
well, it'd be great if instead of I'll call you every day is I'm going to try and call you every day at noon Greenwich Mean Time, be in a clear space trying to get the signal, and then you've got both of them who have this need and urgency at noon every day.
Yeah.
And so whatever he's doing, it's coming close to noon, and he's like, I'm not going to make this one. And that gives her an opportunity to have emotional investment and reaction and think he's dead and she just keeps going because she has faith he's alive. Like there's a whole thing to write there.
Yeah.
It's just not.
And
I'm so frustrated with this movie.
And the way they wrote the family in drives me nuts. Like they make you feel like it's going to be a family escape movie. And then the first chance they get, they're like, here, let's scrape off the kids and the wife. And now it's just Brad Pitt. There we go.
Not only that, but and so a couple of things about the family structure there too is that Brad Pitt gave up his difficult, dangerous job so he could spend more time with the family. But then he's really shitty to the family. He won't let his daughter get a dog. They leave to go wherever they're going today, and he yells back at him, "The plate's in the sink." And it's like, dude, you're a stay-at-home dad. Do your job, Brad Pitt. And then when they're out and they're like, get rescued by a helicopter from a roof by a strike team and given a spot that is limited on a ship. She's like, and they ask him to go help, right? They're like, Brad Pitt, you're our guy. You used to do this. We need you to go with this doctor to find out what happened and where it came from. And then the virologist can figure out what's going on. They ask him to do that. And they say, we only have room on the ship for people that are contributing. So do it kind of or else. And his wife is like, you gave up this job. You don't have this job anymore. Hey, lady, you're taking the paycheck right now. You did not pay for your hot dogs that taste like jet fuel. You didn't pay for your bunk. You didn't pay for the rescue. You are there at somebody else's largesse, and that largesse comes with kind of a price. And I don't know why she's missing that in that scene where she's doing the whole, you can't. You gave it all up for us. And now you're going back. He's going back for you. He's doing the same thing. He's putting family first.
Yeah.
And then insult to injury for me is when they think he's dead and no longer like viable, when they don't think they can use him anymore. They're like, oh yeah, you guys, we're gonna kick you off the ship. That is not a good look if you want to get somebody to help you later. Because if somebody goes, I will risk my life so that my family has a spot on the ship, and then when something happens to him, you go, well, I guess you don't get to live here anymore.
Yeah.
It was that was bad leadership. Yeah. That's a bad set. That's a bad look, man.
Yeah, I've never been in a military situation where once we've taken responsibility for somebody, we immediately try to scrape them off. Now, if we were in a situation where we had to move faster, the first chance we got to get them to a safety area, we would absolutely get them over there. But it's not like they portrayed it in the movie. They just wanted to make the military a dick for a second. I don't know what else to say on that one.
Yeah. And I'm curious too, and this is something that you might know better than I, but how does command structure work when you've got the president's dead and the vice president's a zombie and the command structure is kind of fallen apart except by occasional convoy? Does the captain of a ship or the commodore of a fleet or the commander of a base, do you just work off your last mission orders, or at that point do you get to start going, okay, our new mission is trying to find as many people to save. Our new mission is to find a cure. Our new mission is to sit here but deploy people into other theater of operations to see what's going on. How does that work for command structure?
Yeah, let's say that thankfully we never had to experience something to that level, right?
Yeah.
So that's when they come down and say that the military is a decentralized structure, and it absolutely is. And what they mean by that, a lot of people think that means that there's no primary leader. That's not what decentralized means. Is that everybody has certain standing orders that exist, and those are your standing orders when you don't have that hierarchy telling you what to do. So if you got to the point where the president and all cabinet level leaders were completely gone, you'd probably have about a week of them doing just the baseline what they're supposed to do. And it's after that point where you'd start seeing people I'm making bad decisions because I don't know what to do. It's not a perfect system whatsoever, but there's not a ton of leeway those first couple critical days of what you should and shouldn't be doing. I don't want to ever say, the military is not the people to trust in certain situations, because that's not accurate either. But I would definitely, as a civilian in that type of situation, not go towards the military, just because think about all the other stuff that's happening. They're shooting zombies, so anybody coming towards them, they don't know who it is.
Yeah.
And then they might not have the facilities to support you. I'd wait until somebody was asking to take in civilians before I'd ever go towards them. And anybody who lives in the southern United States, they all have experienced this at some point with the natural disasters. Sorry, I'm going on a tangent to answer your question, but
no, this is what you were talking about last time. This is very interesting because this would be a natural disaster.
Yeah,
I think you consider it in that space.
You don't just run towards the military because there's certain guys that are doing certain tasks and they don't have the means to help you. So I'm going to use Hurricane Michael as an example. Devastated Mexico Beach a couple of years ago. We went out within the first 4 hours of the storm passing, and all we were trying to do is find routes that we could use to get more things in and people out. But people were trying to flag us down, and we couldn't help them. It's not that we didn't want to help them. It's that our mission at that time period was route reconnaissance. Where is safe? Is this puddle electrified because there's a wire in it? Those type of things were what I was looking for. There's 3 of us in a truck. You don't want to bother those guys. It's not that we're being impersonal or we don't have any humanity. It's we got to do this so that we can get the people to help you. And a lot of people don't realize that. And I get it. You see a uniform, you immediately think we're there to do that. But we're doing the thing that we need to do. We'll come and get you, or we'll tell you when we get an opportunity. And I think it was like 72 hours. We're like, okay, here's where the routes are. Now we can tell people that need help how to get to those shelters. And that was a whole mission all of it itself.
Well, I think that what you're talking about makes a lot of sense, because at that point, your orders are almost impartial so that you can be force multipliers. You're not go encounter people and save one person at a time. Your job is go set up the infrastructure so we can save as many of the people as rapidly as possible.
Yeah.
And that's going to happen from infrastructure and not one at a time.
Yeah. And, when you think about major disasters, use Hurricane Michael again, just because it was so bad in the Mexico Beach area, a lot of the places that we thought were going to be safe were completely destroyed. So like plan A, B, and C were off the table. The building I was in was an armory, and it took the AC unit, like the industrial AC unit, ripped it off the building, rolled it across, and peeled that roof off like it was a tin can. And so even if I stopped and picked up people, like, where am I going to take you? Now I just have you hanging out with me in the back of a truck for 48 hours. That's no better than where you just were. So. Yeah.
So you have somebody to talk to that can tell you they can't do anything for you. So one of the mechanics, switching back over to the movie and kind of its stuff, one of the mechanics that I did like is that they early on give you a very obvious timer countdown thing from the bite to infection, and it's 12 seconds, and they have that weird voiceover bit that's it's a countdown to 12, and it sounds like a child's sing-songy kind of rhyme.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard it before, and I couldn't figure out if it was in world or just in Brad Pitt's head to kind of count. But he gets that 12 seconds in his head, and he goes, okay, so bite to zombie is 12 seconds. And he uses it later, once when he gets blood in his mouth. He goes and stands on the edge of the roof.
Yeah.
And for a second, I didn't know what he was doing. And he starts counting and going, oh, crap. If he hits 10 or 11 and feels it, he's leaning forward. Like that was a pretty cool moment. I thought it was a neat way to use it.
Yeah.
Later on, when he's on the plane and he chops the girl's hand off, which I don't think is possible without a much larger, heavier blade with some momentum and a razor sharp edge. I don't think you can take like a Bowie knife and kind of go and take a hand off that's sitting there in air. But he cuts her hand off because her hand was bitten. And then he starts to bandage it, and he's counting, but he stops at 8, which was weird to me. And that was, I don't know why that switched.
Yeah, that goes back to
they set up this rule and then go 8. I think she's fine. This will be fine.
Yeah, you know who did this a lot better was, and this is gonna make me sound like an old school person when it comes to movies, but I promise you I'm not that big of a loyalist. Is George A. Romero did it in Day of the Dead, and it was way more tense because we didn't know the infection time perfectly. Yeah. And they're like, I don't know. I just cut this dude's arm off, and he might die of infection, or he might be a zombie. We're gonna find out though. And the difference there is he stayed with the lore. Like he's like, here's what we know. We're gonna find out. This is my first time doing this in a movie, and everybody, you didn't know. If he would have stopped at 8, and then like if something would have gone on for a couple more seconds and she turned, that would have been awesome because it's like he screwed up. But they didn't stick with any of the lore that they set up early in the movie, and it hurts the movie late. And then they shifted the movie so drastically at the end that I'm just going to say, I thought the ending was a comedy. When I first saw it, I laughed. And I'm like, oh, no, he really wants me to feel tense at this moment. I don't feel that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I can hear the frustration in your voice. And I have so many notes because I was just sitting here writing off the whole thing. I bolded a couple of them because I think it's important to talk about. And one of the things that hit me early on is after they get off the top of the building and they're with like the command structure and they're figuring out what to do, I'm going, okay, there has to be something. And so I wrote, is there any allegory? Is there any lesson? Is there instruction on how people react to a disaster? Give me something thematic. Is this man's hubris, man's greed, man's inhumanity in man? We are the zombies. What are you talking about with this film? And you know what they were talking about? Nothing.
Yeah.
They were talking about nothing. They were talking about Brad Pitt being cool.
Yeah.
That's a different movie, man. I'm down with Brad Pitt being cool. I've seen him be cool in other movies.
Yeah.
I didn't need to see him be cool in this movie, and it didn't really work.
Yeah,
for a dude running around being cool.
100%. When you get a large star in any movie, it has to be about that. And that's, right or wrong, that's just the way it is when it comes to large Hollywood actors. This wasn't the type of movie I think that we should have had a large. I'm not hating on Brad Pitt, just not the movie to have a star-studded lead about him when the movie, or at least the source material, wasn't intended to be about an individual, right? So it was
right.
And then to your point, so. Going back to the god of zombie movies, George A. Romero, he had his critiques, right? That he was trying to say, even if you hate the movies, we know it's about capitalism. We know that it's about consumerism. Yeah. We know it's about the military-industrial complex. Those messages are very clear in his movies, whether you like them or not. To your point, this movie doesn't have anything. Like, I guess, get vaccinated, but that's not really what we're saying there either.
Well, so, the Israel thing, right? So then when they're in Israel and looking at their ways that because they're letting people in to Israel, I don't know where the people came from to get through the gates when the place is surrounded by zombies. And instead of running them through a kind of chain link maze to get into the place, they should have like locks, like gates, where they lock 1,000 people in this space and see if any of them turn to zombies. And 12 seconds later, they open the other door and then let in another 1,000 people and close it. Wait 12 seconds, open the other door.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't seem like they're even playing by security rules that they've already learned.
And
which is so frustrating.
We're also supposed to accept that this just happened. Like in the book, it's that slow buildup, right? We have like the chapters talking about how nobody knows, and then they slowly learn and they're trying to conceal it. You don't get that in the movie at all. But Israel has this 100-foot wall. No. Like nobody asked about them building this giant wall and why. It's not like they just built it overnight.
Yeah.
So was there a story that they just didn't tell us here? Like,
yeah.
It's not.
You're right. The timeline is all messed up. I didn't realize that, but it's 100% all messed up.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
And looking back and thinking about it, there was another thing early on. So they're in Manhattan at the beginning, and they're for some reason they have a car and live in Manhattan, which is dumb as all get out. They have a car and live in Manhattan, and they're driving their car in Manhattan and get in traffic, and then there's zombies everywhere, and the people are trying to flee, and you have a shot of one of the bridges leading off of the island, and they say containment ineffective. So were they trying to contain the contamination to Manhattan? And if so, why didn't they blow up the bridges and the tunnels? We know that works because of the hurricanes that have shut down the bridges and the tunnels.
Yeah.
It was very, if it's that important and you're trying for a quarantine, you isolate that thing. You go, nerp.
Yeah. And it's not like we've seen them do that before either, just to your point.
Yeah, and to the kind of structure of it, that made it feel like there was enough awareness by the military to start a containment. Not that day, it had to have been weeks in planning. Right?
Yeah.
Like you can't mobilize the National Guard to cut Manhattan off without somebody A, finding out and freaking out, or B, people looking around and going, hey, why can't I get across the Manhattan bridges? Why? Yeah. Why is Brooklyn shut down? I was going to go for a walk. That happened at 5 a.m. the first day they tried it, probably 4 a.m. But that part messes up. The timeline to actually build the wall is all messed up. The timeline for how long the people have been in South Korea is kind of messed up. Like, I think if you sat down and tried to actually map this temporally, like go, and then this happens and this happens, God, that'd be awful. Oh my God, it'd be so bad.
Yeah. And I mean, we can always say that in between certain things that there is cuts, but if you just look at how far he travels and the amount of days that they tell us has happened, it doesn't make sense either. It's like, how?
Is there a plane that can fly from Korea to Israel without refueling?
No.
That feels like a long way.
I mean, you could probably do it, but
is there a direct flight from South Korea to Israel?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you can fly it, but he doesn't even like. I get the impression that it was like a day and it's done and over with. And it's
yeah. Well, there is a flight. It's 12 hours and 20 minutes, and it goes from Seoul, South Korea, to Tel Aviv, and it used to fly, but now it is inactive. Oh no, it says inactive. There are no with direct flights. But if it's 12 hours, 20 minutes, you can do it because I think the longest flight is the one from like LA to like China or Singapore or something like that. But it's like a 13-hour flight. Okay, so maybe it's possible, but I don't know what fuel a C-130 consumes. I don't know. This whole thing was just so frustrating. The bunch of planes that they set up to take off from Israel was confusing. Did they just have them all ready in case they needed an evac, I guess, which isn't a bad idea, but where are you going to go to? Like, what's your plan there? And then how did a zombie hide in the bathroom for like 3 hours on the flight?
Yeah, and it's not until that stewardess comes by and the dog's freaking out. She's like, I'm going to play with this.
Yeah.
And we're like, really? And then we're expected to believe that the zombies can pile up and get over a wall, but the luggage somehow is enough to stop them. I was like, what are the rules of these zombies again? Like, are some zombies more powerful than others?
You know what? I don't know if this zombie virus affects animals, but I don't think it did. We never saw it affect an animal. It would have been cool to have like some zombie dogs murdering. But I thought that puppy was going to find like a finger or something and bite it and get zombified and then zombify its own. Like that would have been more coherent with the rules of the world. Like, because while they were fleeing, some zombie part could have gotten stuck to somebody's dress or shoe or clothes and got pulled in. Okay. Or especially the military guys, and you show them set down a bag or a jacket and a finger starts going, crawl, crawl, crawl. And you're like, oh shit, that's bad.
Yeah.
I'm tired of these mother zombies on these planes.
Exactly.
Go
ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say,
there's so much wrong with this thing.
So tell me if I misunderstood this, but the vaccines that supposedly make you invisible to the zombies, I don't get that at all. So basically what happens is you get the vaccine and the zombies suddenly just don't see you anymore. So does that mean that the zombies are actually blind and they're not sensing us with any other senses other than maybe smell?
So to that, I had a bunch of questions on that too, because basically what they infer is that the zombies aren't going to consume diseased flesh, which is why they don't eat each other. So they don't eat each other because they're diseased, which means they also won't eat people if you have the flu or a cold. And so, by the way, fantastic fun stunt casting at the World Health Organization. You got Peter Capaldi, you got a Doctor Who at the Who, which is fun. Then you've got Ruth Negga, whose name I'm always uncomfortable saying, but she was in a season of The Misfits and she was on Preacher. She's really fun. And you have this great set of cast and then you do nothing with them. Yeah. They're set there for expository purposes for this weird third act set piece zombie fight and sneak through. But when they're talking about it, she's like, yeah, some animals won't eat, diseased flesh because it'd make them sick. And I'm like, dude, animals will eat diseased flesh. Yeah. I know a ton of animals that will eat diseased flesh and they won't get sick. They're fine. You got everything from vultures and buzzards to hyenas and jackals that are perfectly fine eating that stuff. So this whole zombie thing, they're going, if you're sick, they won't eat you. And then I had the same question you did, which is how do they know? Because it looks like they're seeing things. They're motivated and hear you by sound. But now they can also smell if you're sick or not.
Yeah.
like it starts turning into this whole contrivance that's super built in to make a different ending. And that ending, the reshot ending, the one that's in the movie, is so full of crap. Like, it's such crap. Like, they don't tell him when he's going which diseases to get and which diseases not to get. They send him into a vault that has the Spanish flu in it for some reason. Like, that's one of the labels I saw. And then she calls him on the phone, which doesn't alert any zombies this time.
Yep.
Tells him the code to the door, but not what diseases to get. He goes in there. There's a zombie outside, so he ends up injecting himself. And when he injects himself, he holds up a sign that says, "Tell my family I love them," instead of a GD sign that says, "Make the phone ring twice if I can take this one."
Yeah, or anything.
What is wrong with Brad Pitt and his super skills? I'm so mad at this thing.
Well, you're also
okay. So then he takes it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, you're also telling me that you're in the CDC. I work in healthcare. We have intercoms all over our facilities. I could easily pick up a phone and page the entire facility using the code. But some reason that vault they don't have. I don't believe that.
Well, they don't want the viruses to hear you talking, because then they'll come after you.
The Spanish flu will start migrating.
So he injects himself with something, and they add in this fake suspense going, if he took anything from the left thing, then he's going to die anyway. He injects the right thing, and then the zombie doesn't want to attack him. It was like right up in his face. And then he walks past all the zombies and gets back, and they develop a cure, basically. They inject everybody with a vaccine that makes them look sick to zombies or smell sick to zombies. So then if this is true, that the zombies are not going to eat you if you're sick, how does that apply to people who are HIV positive but managing it? What does that do with people that have cancer? How many people have flu or the cold at any given time?
Yeah.
Does this affect people that are older and dying of like liver failure and stuff? What about like hepatitis? What about all these chronic diseases that people live with? Lyme disease. Is Lyme disease now a safety net? Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
You have this giant opportunity, if that's what you're doing, to frame it up before. And they don't. They have like 3 people that don't look sick but aren't eaten.
Exactly. And so we get introduced to this theme or this idea in the Israel scene. He sees a cancer patient just chilling in the middle of the zombies running right by. If they wanted to set that up, I think a better scene would have been the very beginning in New York, when he, instead of watching the car scene where it made no sense, he should have focused on one person that like the zombies were just going right by. That would have been like, why is that person not being attacked? But there's a lot of missed opportunities in this movie.
Yeah. It had a lot of rewrites. They changed the whole third act, or like the ending they reshot. And I felt Peter Capaldi was wasted, because they gave him lines like, "Not B-Wing," and he walked right by them. Like, he's just used to point out to the dumb people, get it? B-Wing's bad. Oh, see, we successfully made the cure. Did you see the cure? Like, it's so gosh darn crappity.
Yeah.
So crappity. Are there kids with chickenpox that are sitting at home and their parents are all zombied around them? Like, it's...
And I read this on a different review, like after watching the movie. Somebody said, one of the things I liked was the zombies clicking their teeth. And that was actually what I thought was a comedy skit, was like right at the end. Yeah. Right at the end, he's in in that one zombie, and when he starts clicking his teeth, I was like, that's kind of hilarious for some reason. It wasn't scary or tense, but hey, if people like it, I guess.
What would have been creepy on that, and what The Last of Us did really well, is in The Last of Us, it does play off of the cordyceps thing. So they're like covered in fungus and stuff, but they do click, and there's clickers, and they're using echolocation to find you. And so it's super creepy way in a video game to kind of convey that, because you'll hear the clicking, you're like, oh, I got to hold still and not move and figure out where they're at.
Yeah.
Like in the video game or in the movie world, if you would establish that their eyes start to fail and they rely on smell, echolocation, sound, like there's neat stuff to do.
Yeah.
And they didn't do it.
Yeah. And that goes back to what I said right at the start of this, is like, it doesn't add anything new to the zombie franchises, right? Like,
Yeah. No, not at all. It adds Brad Pitt. He hasn't been in a zombie movie before.
Okay, I guess you got me there.
The echolocation thing is kind of cool to me too, because people can actually learn to do it. There are blind people who can kind of tell where they are in a room by clicking. And so you can teach yourself to echolocate. So it's kind of a neat thing to throw in there. It'd be a crazy kind of way to develop it. And I think to your point about not adding anything to the zombie mythos, they don't even try.
Yeah.
Like this is not a thoughtful movie. This is not a self-aware movie. This is an unexamined child who's never read a book. Like there's so much in this that is just dog shit.
Yeah, and
$590 million. They made $590 million on this pile of. Oh man, I'm so aggrieved.
They stole a good franchise. I fully believe that a lot of people saw it because they read the book and they're like, ooh, but they're when you're that person who says it's not as good as the book, people who don't care about the book are like, okay, well, I'm not going to read the book, and then they go see the movie. I don't really put a lot of effort behind the box office. I mean, if we did that, The Thing would have never been a great movie, but that's a cult classic.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Yeah, it did terrible in the box office, but it did phenomenal overall. And, going back to Brad Pitt's character, they don't really develop him beyond, I'm the dad who is supposed to be a stay-at-home dad, and now I'm forced to not. That's his entire character. You get that in the first, 5-10 minutes in the movie, and nothing changes.
And then he's back, baby.
Yeah. It's
back to my job.
It's Brad Pitt as usual.
And there's no arc. There's no development. Nobody has a change as a person. There's no personal struggles to overcome. There's just the zombies to overcome, and they are inconsistent in what you're overcoming.
Yeah. This is something else that bothers me. No main character is ever truly in danger because of that plot armor. So everybody who gets killed is a side character that you like. I can't really tell you. I can remember Brad Pitt's wife's character's name other than Brad Pitt's wife, but she's never in danger.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, I got no idea.
Yeah, let's just put this out there. One of my criteria for a good movie is, can I tell you the name of characters in the movie after I've seen it? And I'm going to use Jurassic Park as an example. I can tell you all the main characters in that movie, even, the lawyer who gets killed. Remember De Niro? Who's there? So I can't. We have Brad Pitt. I don't know Brad Pitt's character. I don't remember his kids' names. I don't remember his wife's name because they don't matter. It's not critical to them as a story.
Now that you've brought that up and I'm thinking about it, the only reason I know Brad Pitt's name is because I was reading the Wikipedia article, and because he's in it so often, I'm like, okay, Jerry. But I don't know his wife's name. I have no idea what the general's name was that was on the ship. I have no idea what the co-pilot's name was. I don't know the name of the soldier who got her arm cut off. I don't know the name of the guy that's in charge in Israel. I don't know anybody's name.
Yeah.
I know the actors, but even I remember looking at Peter Capaldi because I'm like, oh, it's Peter Capaldi. I want to remember. He doesn't have a name. He is a World Health Organization doctor.
Oh, Lord.
And I'm like, what? Crap.
It's even better.
And I was like, oh, they didn't name them, so I'm not forgetting anything on that one.
Yeah. And,
yeah. The frustration here too for me is that for the amount of money they spent, they could have spent a tenth of it. They could have spent maybe less than that. They could have spent $10 million and made a 10-part miniseries for HBO or something that would have been amazing. Yeah. You put little bumpers of the shorter stories at the beginning and the end, and then you do like 2 20-minute pieces in the middle that highlight one of the stories, and you wrap them with narration or make them like a documentary. Yeah. Make this as a documentary, and it would be fantastic. And the budget would be nothing.
Yeah.
The budget would be easy to get a hold of in Hollywood, but now the source material is polluted. They have made a World War Z video game off of this thing.
Yeah.
And it's just, now World War Z is not the cool Max Brooks novel. It's the shitty Brad Pitt movie.
Yeah, and I asked you when we were doing the book if you saw Max Brooks's response to the movie. He's okay with the way the movie came out, so there's that to it. I think
he's okay with the check that he got.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that it comes down to that. And it was, like to your point, it was a successful movie. But I do think that, HBO or Netflix, if they would have turned this into a series, to your point, you could have done a chapter as an episode from the book, or you could have broken it apart more. There could have been so many other ways to have told the story. And there was so much potential in the book that they just completely skipped on, that it's painful to have been a fan of the book and watched the whole movie.
Yeah.
I know you said that even as a zombie movie by itself, the only reason I said it's okay as a zombie movie separate from the World War Z is because like a lot of zombie movies out there are just complete B-tier movies, which is ironic because it started with, talking about George A. Romero, who is king of the B movies. But
yeah,
at least those movies added something.
But I mean, there's a reason he's king.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a reason that he's not a guy who made B movies and we've forgotten about. He's the king of B movies with heart and substance, engagement, script, and they just sit there and go, "Huh, I'm punching way above my weight."
Yeah.
Right. Look what I can do with $500,000.
Exactly. Look what I can do without paying my zombie actors. Like.
Yeah, you get credit and meals provided.
Yeah,
and it's just, I just have these notes that are just so stupid too. Like, why do they have a splitting axe at the World Health Organization? Like the axe that Brad Pitt takes with him to kill zombies with isn't a normal fire axe. It's literally a maul for splitting. It has like fatter head for splitting logs. Why do they have that at the World Health Organization? And why don't we ever get to see him use it against a zombie? He uses it to prop open a door, and then he uses a crowbar to kill zombies.
Yeah.
It's like, come on. I'm disappointed in all of you. I want to see axe murder zombies. I'd watched 90 minutes of that before I'd watch this again.
Yeah,
just a guy in the middle of the woods clearing out the zombies.
Yeah. And, if you want to go back to like other...
Oh, and how does power and internet work? It seems to be no issue anywhere. Like, is power anybody's problem? Like, everything's fine.
And that goes back to the timeline.
The infrastructure is fine.
Yeah, it goes back to that timeline issue. If everything collapses, you have like 24, 48 hours of power and maybe a week of water before you have problems, right? But the zombies are all over, but everything is fine. And then... Yeah. Oh, man. I didn't want to...
Because there's post-apocalyptic movies that handle this well. They go, nope, the generator's on, and now we've got to turn it... Jurassic Park has the power go out, and they have to go prime everything and flip the switches when they get the jetting on. And they could have had that. They could have had solar and battery. Like, they could have had one guy holed up in his house running off of his F-150 plugged backwards in. Like, there's so many ways to bring these problems up and solve them. And they were so busy going, okay, well, who does Brad Pitt fight next? And can we get his shirt off? Oh, we couldn't get his off in this movie, so we'll have to do it twice in the next one.
Oh, yeah, and please don't make another movie on this. Which I heard that they're in discussion about making World War Z 2. I'm like, how? You have the vaccine. That in-game, it's over. Anyway.
They alluded to that at the end, too. So once they figure out, like, the vaccine, they're like, they have the voiceover, which, why the hell do you need a voiceover for the end of this movie? You don't.
Yeah.
They have a couple of reporters who are saying, like, we've lost some cities, and when there's no more people to infect, they go dormant. What does dormant mean? How long does it last? How do they respond to cold? What happens when they get wet and stand out in the rain? Like, eventually these things, whatever they are, fall to the law of entropy. So how long does that take? And just wait. Frozen would be a different scenario. Like, you can go, okay, there's some that are frozen and they'll come back in a year, but I just didn't like the total lack of. I want more realism in my zombie movies. Damn it!
Exactly. Come on, haven't you ever seen a zombie before?
Oh man. Well, that would have been interesting too if they'd gone for the actual instead of being an infection and zombies, they were actually like voodoo zombies. Like the Haitians are bringing the dead back to life.
There's just
as a big politics and class cultural thing.
Yeah, they could have done.
Baron Sunday shows up.
They could have done so much more, and I probably would have been happy with anything other than what we ended up getting. But because you asked me earlier about the military side of it, one thing that I can absolutely tell you that I would never do is give a scientist that has never shot a gun before a gun. That I mean, even if
apparently he's got bad trigger discipline too, even though they yell at him for it right before he shoots himself in the head.
Yeah, I'm not giving. I'm fairly fine with private ownership of guns because somebody out there is going to be like, "You're one of them," and I'm like, no. Completely okay with it. In a military context, in a military operation, if you haven't been trained with my team, I'm not giving you a gun. And if I find out you have a gun, I'm like, you're going to keep that away from me until it's time to it's crap is hitting the fan. Yeah. Why did you give? Why?
Yeah.
So, not that it matters.
Especially since you're fighting zombies and they react to noise. So if he freaks out and starts shooting his gun, he's going to make more of a problem for everybody.
Which doesn't matter anyways because Brad Pitt had a cell phone. But your point. Yeah.
They didn't even have the cool ass weapon from the book, the Lobo, the lobotomizer. Man, that would have been fun to see.
Wouldn't that have been cool if they had that at the World Health Organization? You know, hey, I made this. You're like,
hell yeah.
So, but no, we got a fire accident or a wood splitting accident get used. Sense there.
Well, okay. Honestly, I could bag on this movie for longer than the movie is because there's so much shit in it. If you want a movie to bag on, this is one to go watch and make fun of with your drunk friends. Yeah. That being said, Sean, is there any theme, idea, or real piece of crap you want to call out before we kind of bring this, like Brad Pitt says, this is not the end, which he says at the end of the movie. It is the end, Brad. It's over.
Yeah, the biggest thing, I'm going to go right back to what we said. You took World War Z, and it's not World War Z. This is not World War Z.
Yeah, I'm so mad.
I mean, I would have been okay just rename it.
Yeah. There was a reviewer who was talking about one of the reviewers, a guy named Daniel Dresner, and his quote is, "There were three things the movie and book had in common. There were zombies. They had gone global. Israel's security bureaucracy was competent." That's it. Oh, fudge. Don't watch this movie.
They let people sing by the gate.
Say again?
I said they let people sing by the gate, though. So
Yeah, that's Israel's incompetency. Probably blame it on the Palestinians somehow, but, Okay. Okay, with that, Sean, one more time, tell the people where to find you because they're going to leave this and immediately go to their computers to be like, oh, I want to know more about Sean and read his books.
Absolutely. You can find me under SS Fitzgerald. You can find me on my website, ssfitzgerald.net. I'm on all social medias, so you can find me there except for TikTok because TikTok doesn't like me. And then my books are on it.
Are you on Blue Sky or are you on Twitter X or Mastodon or where's your...
Yeah, I guess I shouldn't say all, right? So I'm on Twitter under SS Fitzgerald. But if you go to my website and you click the social sites at the top, you can find me on Facebook or Twitter.
Cool beans. I'm Justin. You found me already, but if you want to follow me, I am on Blue Sky as Justin Duke. Whatever the other things are for Blue Sky. But if you look me up, you'll find me. And then all the socials I think that I'm on. Again, you found me already. So we'll put links in the show notes and we'll put links in the YouTube description. Sean, man, thank you so much. Let's talk and figure out what we can do with The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Bye.